Okay guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I want to solve all cases study for my final term applied linguistics. So this final assignment of applied linguistics, which sponsored by Dr. Andika Hendra Mustaqim, University Bina Sarana Informatika. But before I want to solve all the cases of the study, let me introduce myself. My name is Matthew Hans Kundimang and my student ID is 33220135 and I'm from University of Bina Sarana Informatika. So next slide. Let's see. In the case study 1, it is analyzing bias in news reporting through linguistic feature. So Mr. Thompson is a linguist studying the use of language in news reporting. He is particularly interested in how language can convey bias, shape public opinion, and influence the reception of new events. Mr. Thompson analyzed articles from various news outlets covering the same events to identify linguistic patterns that may indicate bias. He also considers the impact of these linguistic choices on the audience understanding and interpretation of the news. So the question is, what linguistic features should Mr. Thompson focus on to identify bias in news reporting? Next, in analyzing bias in news reporting, Mr. Thompson must adopt a critical discourse analysis, or we can say CDA framework, which views language as a form of social practice that reflects and reinforces power relations. Bias is not morally conveyed through overt opinion, but is often embedded subtly within linguistic structures. Three key linguistic features reveal ideological positioning. So this is the three key of linguistic. So the first is lexical selection and semantic prosody. The theoretical basis, semantics, stylistics, and CDA. Okay, so language choices are never neutral. Lexical items carry semantic prosody, meaning they acquire connotative associations through repeated collocation with emotionally charged words. For instance, illegal immigrant versus asylum seeker. And the second is regime versus government. These lexical variations frame subjects differently and influence how readers perceive their legitimacy or morality. Why it matters? By analyzing connotative word choices, Mr. Thompson can detect systematic favoritism or antagonism, especially when certain descriptors are disproportionately applied to specific groups, ideologies, or nations. Number 2 is framing in implicature. Framing refers to the selection and emphasis of certain aspects of a story to promote a particular interpretation. Even when factual, headlines like "Protesters clash with police" frame the event differently from "Police crackdown on demonstrators." Implicature, as per Grice's theory of conversational implicature, involves that what is suggested but not explicitly stated. Journalists may use it to imply blame or precisely. Why it matters? This reveals in the indirect bias media can shape perception without explicit editorializing. influencing public attitudes while maintaining an appearance of neutrality. Okay, next is synthetic structure and agency assignment. So this is number 3. The synthetic choices, especially pacification, determine who is portrayed as the actor or the act upon. Consider the civilian was killed during the operation. Second is the army killed a civilian during the operation. The former hides agency, thus softening accountability. Why it matters? Tracking such a construction across multiple articles can uncover systematic tendencies to protect or vilify certain agents. The transdisciplinary connection is applied linguistics and journalism equips journalists and media analysts to detect and mitigate ideological bias in reporting. Applied linguistics and public relations helps professionals use neutral or inclusive language, increases communication. So, and last is applied linguistics and content creation encourage ethical storytelling that avoids manipulative framing and stigmatizing language. Okay, so next case study. Imagine the next case study is language policy for linguistic diversity and national unity. Okay, imagine you are a language planner working for the government of a country with a diverse linguistic landscape. The country has several indigenous languages spoken by different ethnic groups, as well as a dominant national language used for official purposes. Your task is to develop a language policy that promotes linguistic diversity while ensuring effective communication and national unity. And the question is, how can the government promote the use and preservation of indigenous language through education? Okay, next. Language planning in multilingual context requires balancing linguistic diversity with national integration. According to Fishman graded intergenerational disruption scales, or we can call it GITS. Language loss begins when a language is no longer transmitted through formal and informal education. To address this, a robust policy must align with theories from sociolinguistics, ethnolinguistics, and ecolinguistics, which recognize language as a repository of culture, worldview, and ecological knowledge. So, the first is the institutionalizing mother tongue based multilingual education, or we can say MTB MLE. Introduce MTB MLE in early childhood and primary education, where instruction begins in the mother tongue and gradually transitions to national and international language benefit. And the benefits is enhanced cognitive development and literacy, encourage intergenerational language transmission, and promotes linguistic rights and equity. Why it matters? This respects the linguistic human rights of minority communities and aligns with UNESCO's advocacy for multilingual education as a pillar of sustainable development. So the second is curriculum and media development in indigenous languages. So develop age-appropriate learning materials, textbooks, and digital resources in indigenous language, crafted using locally relevant content. Involve applied linguistics and content creation for production. Why it matters? This fosters language vitality, um, combats linguistic imperialism, and empowers local communities through participatory education. The third is community involvement and teacher training programs. Train teachers from within linguistic communities and integrate native speakers as cultural educators. Language policy must be bottom-up, involving tribal councils, local NGOs, and grassroots leaders. Why it matters? When communities participate in preserving their language, the policy becomes socially sustainable and culturally grounded. So, transdisciplinary connection is applied linguistic and public policy is facilitates inclusive language planning that balance national unity with cultural preservation. Next is applied linguistic and TEFL integrates indigenous language awareness into second language acquisition frameworks. And the last is applied linguistic and sustainability recognize linguistic diversity as a key to ecological and cultural resonance. Okay, so in conclusion, applied linguistics as a problem-solving discipline. These two cases show how applied linguistics is not just theoretical but action-oriented, providing tools to analyze, prefer, and promote equity and design inclusive education policies. Whether addressing media bias or linguistic extinction, applied linguistics must think interdisciplinarily, integrating insight from education, policy, media, and technology. So I have storytelling for those two cases. So like part 1, this is my storytelling, is language bias in news reporting, the cases 1. So I give a title is The Power of Words in the News. Imagine you're scrolling through social media and see two headlines about the same protest. One says, citizens rally for justice in peace demonstration. The other says, angry mob causes chaos in the streets. You click both, they're talking about the same event, but the language makes you feel differently, doesn't it? That's what happened to me last year during a local student protest in my city. I was there, I knew it was calm. But when I read this news later, some headlines made it seem like a riot had happened. I realized it's not just what the news tell us, it's how they say it. That's where applied linguistics come in. By analyzing word choices, sentence structure, and even what's not said, we can uncover hidden biases and understand how the media influence public opinion. In part 2, in the cases of language policy and indigenous language, I have the title of my storytelling. So the title is My Grandmother Language. So jadi oma saya yang bahasa oma saya ya. Jadi when I was a child, my grandmother spoke to me in our indigenous language. It was beautiful, full of songs, stories, and proverbs. But when I went to school, everything was in the national language. My grandmother's words slowly fade from my mind. Years later, I asked my little cousin what certain word mean in our language, and he didn't know. That moment hurt because I realized a language dies when the next generation stops using it. If schools taught in mother tongue, at least in the early years. What if book and cartoons were made in our language? What if teachers from our community could pass down not just grammar, but culture and wisdom. That's the power of language policy. With the help of applied linguistics, we can build an education system that values every voice, big or small. So I have a closing bridge to the role of applying linguistics. These two stories of mine, one from the muse and one from my family, show that language shapes our mood. Whether it's influencing how see the chart or deciding whose voices survive, language is never neutral. That's why applied linguistics matters. It gives us the tools to question, protect, and empower through words. Okay. Thank you for watching my solving cases for my final term applied linguistics, and thank you for watching. See you again in next project.